Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Right now, I'd like to quickly introduce our moderator for today, who is Crisanta Gonzalez from the city of Los Angeles, and who is also the co-chair of, or chair rather, of our public sector committee. Hello, Crisanta.
Hi, everyone. Yes, as Mark mentioned, I'm Crisanta Gonzalez. I'm with the City of Los Angeles Emergency Management Department. I'm also the ECA Public Sector Committee Chair. I do want to welcome all of you. We're very excited today to have our guest speakers presenting today. You're going to be hearing from both Stephen Andrews and Candy Alvarez. And you're going to learn a lot about our mini awards, how they are used, some examples, and so it's exciting times. So we're really excited to have you all join us here today. Thank you, and back to you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Crisanta. All right, so before we hear from our presenters today about their activities and what they do in their communities, and also how they have used ECA Mini Awards support to facilitate and conduct those activities, I'm just going to give a little overview of the Earthquake Country Alliance. And we are, and many of you who have joined are members, but if you're not, we encourage you to join at earthquakecountry.org/alliance. We are people from all across the state working together to improve earthquake safety and tsunami safety in our communities. And we have regional alliances and 4 parts of the state, as well as statewide committees, like the Public Sector Committee, which is the organizer of this webinar series. We are funded by the California Office of Emergency Services with funding they get from FEMA, and headquartered at USC and the Southern California Earthquake Center. Our major activities are providing messaging and resources through our websites at earthquakecountry.org and terremotos.org, as well as supporting major statewide initiatives each year, such as the Tsunami Preparedness Week and the Great California Shakeout, which we just had in October. Though you can still have your earthquake drill if you did not hold a shakeout drill or even a tsunami activity this year. Still time. It won't take too long. And maybe you had a workplace drill, but you haven't had a home drill or other organizations that you are a part of. You can have drills with those groups too. It's really important that you be practicing earthquake safety in all the areas of your life. One aspect that we have created one tool for organizing what to do before, during, and after earthquakes is the 7 steps to earthquake safety. And we'll be hearing about the first step, secure your space, in our first presentation today. But these are really the key ways for earthquakes of what you want to do before, during, and after, so that you can be prepared to survive and recover. And at both of our websites, we have comprehensive information about each step at earthquakecountry.org/7steps and terremotos.org/siete pasos. In fact, last year we did a webinar series, which you can still view for each of the 7 steps. Nothing really out of date about it at all. Maybe we were talking about COVID a little bit more in the still happening in a big way sense, but it was really designed to take actions that we could, especially being perhaps for many people in a different normal environment, workspace wise and such. So to be reminded of what we need to be doing and what we need to be coming back to. So you might want to review those or watch one of those webinars. Also, just to update you that we have a number of materials now in multiple languages, and you can find those at earthquakecountry.org/languages, including a new workbook for going through the 7 steps to earthquake safety in a meeting or in a presentation, where it's called Your Action Plan, and just notes that you can take. And this also for each step to help you in your planning and the steps you're going to take. And while this version is shown in multiple languages, they actually come in one language as a set, but we have 15 different versions, different languages of this now too. As mentioned, one of the big activities that we have or coordinate our sector-based committees, and this is the public sector. If you like to join one of these groups because you're a member of that community and would like to make a difference, please do. And you can find out information at earthquakecountry.org/committees. And a little backwards here, but again, Crisanta Gonzalez, I want to turn back to you to then introduce our first speaker.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you, Sharon, for putting all the links in the chat. If you're interested in those links, they are in the chat that Mark was just talking about, as well as any Q&A. You can use the Q&A function for your questions as well. Right now, I am very happy to introduce Stephen Andrews. He is going to present on behalf of the Martinez Area CERT regarding Mitigation Mini Awards. So Stephen, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Crisanta. Do we have the slides? There we go. So I am going to be talking about 2 mini awards that were the Martinez Area CERT, Community Emergency Response Team, was recipient of from ECA, and they are related to Secure Your Space, or another way to think about Secure Your Space is non-structural earthquake hazard risk mitigation. And so that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. So let me start off by telling you a little bit about the Martinez CERT organization. The organization serves a population of about 37,000 in the city of Martinez and unincorporated area of Pacheco in Contra Costa County. 800 trained community volunteers serve as part of Martinez CERT. 100 of those are active service volunteers with advanced training in things like light search and rescue, first aid. 80 are sworn disaster service. 23 are certified FEMA instructors, and 20, and I think this is the only CERT in the state that has this, are certified incident stress managers, so had special training in that. The city sponsoring agency for Martinez CERT is the Martinez Police Department, which is a little bit unusual because usually CERTs are under a fire department, but Martinez Fire is covered by the county, so the police department takes the lead for this. If you're interested in our website, it's martinezcert.org, and you'll find lots of resources related to what I'm talking about today at that website. If you'd like to email me specifically with questions, you can send attention at martinez.cert@gmail.com. So let's talk about the Earthquake Hazard Mitigation Initiative. We call it EQHM. And it actually originated following the winter 2020 ECA Bay Area Regional Conference that was held at the new Martinez Hayward Library. And I think it was the last in-person face-to-face ECA conference. But anyway, the idea for this germinated during that conference. There were a number of speakers that were talking about mitigation. And so from that, I went back and talked to our director and some of our leadership group, and we decided to submit a mini grant, a mini award related to Secure Your Space. Objectives for were: 1, to assess and mitigate non-structural earthquake hazard risk. And I'll explain what that is in a second here. Using what's called FEMA E74, and that's a guidance document of about 800 pages, nice bed reading, but actually it's chock-a-block full of really useful information. And we using that as the basis at high-use city facilities, particularly those serving youth and seniors. And we wanted to focus on mitigation of hazards in these high-use facilities. The other objective was we wanted to leverage the use of these public facilities for these projects to encourage at-home earthquake risk assessment and mitigation. Because in Martinez CERT, we think that is really key to reducing the amount of damage, injuries, and use following an earthquake or other kind of disaster event. Our 2020 mini award was for the Boys and Girls Club of Contra Costa County, the Martinez Clubhouse, which was the old City of Martinez Police Station. And then our 2021 mini award was for the Martinez Senior Community Center and Meals on Wheels program. So let's go to the next slide, and we'll talk about Why secure your space? Well, as Mark was talking about earlier in his introduction to ECA, secure your space is step one in the process of identifying and mitigating non-structural earthquake hazards that can cause personal injury and deaths, property damage, and loss of use within your home or office. And I encourage you to go and look at the very rich earthquakecountry.org step one website for more detail on this. But secure your space, the idea of mitigating non-structural hazards. And let me talk about what these non-structural hazards are. Let's go to the next slide. So mitigation, what is that? And I have mitigation sense here. Non-structural hazards are related to the stuff that's in your home or your office. Things like bookcases, refrigerators, other appliances, basically anything that's not part of the structure of the building, not the walls, not the beams. It's really the contents associated with your home or your office. And FEMA has estimated non-structural system stuff within a home or office account for more than 75% of the potential future earthquake-related losses and insurance claims. So a significant portion of what happens after an earthquake is not actually related to things like the Cypress structure falling down or the Bay Bridge collapsing. It's actually related to stuff in our homes bouncing all over the place and causing injuries and damage. So when we mitigate that, we identify those risks and we take action to prevent them from becoming a hazard, we're actually saving money. And that's smart investing. We're protecting our investment, our home, our business, whatever it might be. And FEMA, or the Federal Insurance and Mitigation Administration, in its fact sheet from June 2018, gave a figure of for every $1 spent on mitigation, $6 are saved on future disaster losses. And that's really significant, particularly when we think about wildfires, tsunami flooding, all kinds of other disaster situations, but earthquakes, in particular, because that's what we're talking about today. For every $1,000 you spend, you're avoiding $6,000 in future claims. That, I think, is something for all of us to consider, and we should prioritize when we're thinking about our disaster preparedness. Mitigation is really a key to being able to be more resilient following any kind of a disaster situation. Let's go to the next one, Mark. So what constitutes a non-structural hazard? Well, as I alluded to a moment ago, it's the stuff that's contained in our offices or our homes. So top-heavy and large unsecured furniture and appliances, unsecured cabinet doors and drawers like file cabinets, or even your kitchen cabinets, wall-mounted mirrors and pictures, large screen televisions, which most of us now have, and other kinds of home electronics, computers, stereos, that sort of thing. Ceiling fans and hanging light fixtures, and then anything that could potentially block an escape route. Those are all considered non-structural hazards, and that's what we were focused on in these two mini awards. Some examples of potential hazards include the things that you see in this next slide. And so here we see a dresser, we've got a china cabinet, we've got a file cabinet, and a large refrigerator freezer unit. All of these represent potential hazards. And you can ask anyone that has some IKEA furniture and young children that, a dresser that's not secured to a wall represents a significant hazard to a child. Well, the same thing holds true in an earthquake situation, and it's not just for children, it's for all of us, all ages. So these represent potential hazards that we should be looking at and mitigating. So how do we know? How do we identify all of the hazards? Well, in this next slide, it shows us the Earthquake Home Hazard Hunt. And there's a website, a link at the bottom there, where you can go and actually download a poster version of this, or you can actually write to FEMA, and I believe they have printed copies of it available that they can send to your organization. But as we see this cut through of a home, every room in the home has some kind of a potential earthquake hazard, and that hazard can be mitigated. Now, you don't see all the fine detail because this is a small graphic, but if you look in the upper left-hand corner, we see there's an office there, and it's got a ceiling fan, and there's a computer and a desktop unit. And then over on the far right, there's a bedroom with a couple of hanging pictures over the bed, not the best idea. So these are all things that represent potential hazards and risks that we can identify and we can mitigate. And so that's what we did with our 2 projects in the city of Martinez. So let's look at some examples of the things that we are identifying and actually mitigating. These are 2 images that come from the slide deck that we use for our EQHM training. In addition to doing the physical mitigation projects and the assessment, we've also followed up with training that we've expanded throughout the community in our service area. And the kind of things that we're looking at include this black tall cabinet that you see that was unsecured to the wall, and all of this tempera poster paint that you see stacked on top. Imagine significant ground shaking. All of that paint would go flying all over the room. The cabinet could fall and hit somebody that's sitting at the chair in front of the white table and the cabinet. So these are examples of risks that we can mitigate fairly easily and that we did during our projects. The image on the right shows a very fancy and expensive light tower. Now the light tower structure is actually bolted to the floor, but it's not bolted to the wall in any way. So with ground shaking and all the top heavy equipment up there, the lights and the speakers and the strobes, all of that would undergo significant motion, and the shear forces associated with that would snap it from its mounting bracket and that would represent a significant to the youth. It might be sitting there watching a program or something. So the light tower is definitely an example, an easy one for us to pick out. But that big screen TV also represents a hazard, as well as the credenza that it's sitting on. The wall hangings also represent hazards. And you might wonder why the wall hanging on the left was selected versus the wall hanging on the right. Well, if we were able to zoom in on that wall hanging, we'd see there's nothing that's affixing it directly to the wall, into a wall stud. The one on the right, however, is actually mounted into wall studs. And at the very top, you can see the anchor points, which were used to fasten it to the wall. So these are some examples of hazard mitigation and the kind of thing you should be doing in your home or workplace, whatever facility it is, and to be assessing. And these are all identified as part of that FEMA E74 guidance document. So let's look at some of the mitigation measures that we implemented. We can back up, there we go. So we're going to talk about securing what's called a flexible strap to a stud wall. And I'm emphasizing stud wall because many people think that anchoring using screw anchors or a toggle of some kind into a drywall is sufficient to hold that item during seismic activity. It's not. It's actually quite dangerous to not affix items directly to a stud wall and have a system that uses the stud wall to help anchor that as the anchor point. So here we see one of my colleagues, Cliff, in the image on the left. He's got an electric drill, a battery drill, he's got a stud finder, he's got his safety glasses, and he's got the equipment that he needs to be able to use this office file cabinet safety strap system that was provided as part of the grant through Ready America, one of the sponsors. And he's affixing that to the file cabinet. Now you might wonder, why is he affixing it to the top and where you can see it? Well, this is in a public facility and we want people to notice these straps and ask, what is that and why is it there? So it's partially for an educational intent. Part of our outreach is to show how these things they are and to show that, oh yeah, there's a stud wall there. That's why it's attached in this particular spot. But at home, you might not necessarily want that kind of an aesthetic. Well, you can actually put the strap so that it's behind the item. You can move the item out, and then you can affix the strap to the wall, and then the strap can be hidden behind the object. So there's an aesthetically pleasing way to do all of this stuff and have it fit within the decor of your home or your office. But as you're seeing the images here that I'm sharing today, this is for educational purposes, and we're also using this as outreach to stimulate questions from people and go, what is that all about? So Mark, let's take a look at the next one. So securing home electronics is a big issue. And the Boys and Girls Club had something like 50 personal computers and monitors. So we went around and we took all of those monitors and we affixed them to a hard surface. So the mounted tables that they were on, those tables are fixed to the wall and to the floor so that everything is working together as one unit when the ground starts shaking. In places where we couldn't use what's called a VHB flexible strap, and VHB stands for a very high bond. So there's a special adhesive. It actually makes a chemical bond to the surface that you are trying to secure the item to. And then it has adjustable Velcro and slide straps. On the right, you see applying what's called Quake Putty. And that is a fabulous material. Some of you may remember Silly Putty from your youth. It's kind of like Silly Putty, but a lot stronger. And so in cases where you can't use a strap, you can apply this Quake Putty to the bottom of a monitor and it will help fix it to whatever it's placed upon. Let's take a look at another one, Mark. Another thing that we did was look at cabinet doors and secured cabinet doors with safety clips. Some of you may think of these as child safety clips. They're similar. There are different versions of these on the market. One happens to be red, but also safety proof. Sponsors has one, and they have a great on it that is actually activated by seismic action. So the little clip comes down and it holds it in place. So these may be something that you want to investigate, but securing cabinet doors is something that you want to do as part of your mitigation process. Let's go on now and look at the next slide and talk about open shelves. So many of us have library shelves, bookcases with lots of different items on them. One way to prevent the contents from spewing out during seismic activity is to restrain it using this bungee cord type system. And here you see this is for bookcase and storage safety strap system that we've installed. And we did this at the library at the Martinez Senior Center, as well as at the Boys and Girls Club. Went through and did all of these, and it actually makes getting stuff in and out of the shelves pretty easy, so that it's not really a pain in the neck for people to do. It's not aesthetically displeasing in any way when you think the safety factor that's afforded you as a result of doing this. So open shelves, securing those with something like these bungees, these restraints is another good idea.
Looks like we've lost Stephen. Stephen, you are frozen there. I'm going to just, hopefully Stephen will come back, but just in the interest of time, share that he has provided a really great tool that you can use to secure especially heavy wall hangings that have the wire that goes across the back. This is called the Amazing Picture Hook. The wire goes into a maze and cannot then bounce off the wall. And it is like with other things, bolted. You can see the bolts into the studs in the wall. The overall goal here is to have closed hooks, and there are different types of hooks that are smaller, maybe for your smaller objects, where that wire would then go through a closed hook so it won't bounce off. You also can use the Quake Putty in the corners to keep items from bouncing and potentially breaking the glass, so you don't get the glass on the floor like in this hallway here. So that's another aspect of things you can secure. I mentioned the Quake Hold Putty you can use in the corners of wall hangings, but also it's meant for objects as shown in the, and Stephen is back. I've been continuing a little bit, Stephen. You're on mute still, so I'm gonna spotlight you back on and you'll be able to speak. I just got to this slide.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Technology. say, right? Got to live with it, got to die by it, whatever.
Sure.
So the next thing that we looked at in terms of mitigation was securing, little things that you have on your shelves, your collectibles, and things like glassware, vases, all of that. So museum wax, museum gel, museum putty. These are 3 products that all are great for holding things. Like I'm a ceramicist, so all of my pottery, I use Quake putty or museum wax on to hold them in place on shelves. And it does a really good job. In fact, some of it, it's been in place for 15 years and hasn't moved under any of the earthquakes we've had in Martinez. There's a little bit of a variation in these products depending on whether you're talking about fine china and crystal or things like ceramics, but they all do the same thing, and that's to securely hold your collectibles in place on a shelf when there's ground motion. So these are all examples of both products and situations where mitigation can be put into place to avoid hazards. And remember that 75% of the hazards associated with an earthquake are related to these non-structural type of systems. So for more on secure your space and the 7 steps, go to earthquakecountry.org and see step 1. And then the 2 sponsors for the mini awards that Martinez CERT received were Ready America and Safety Proof. And I'm going to do a special shout out to Glenn Granholm from Safety Proof, the Vice President for Business Development. He's a great guy, number 1, and number 2, he was hugely helpful by letting me use some of the slides that he had for the presentation he did for ECA and worked with me to refine some of that and develop our educational program. So I want to do a special shout out to Glenn as part of this. I want to close with this last slide because it's an important one. We're talking about mitigation. To remember the importance of reading manufacturer instructions and all that. So by way of disclaimer, the products that are shown for illustrative purposes and are not necessarily a brand endorsement by Martinez Area CERT. There are lots of products on the market. The 2 companies that were sponsors for the mini awards of the products that we used, but you should look at all the products out there and decide what works best for your situation. You need to read, understand, and follow all manufacturer product information before installation or use. Not all products are useful for or applicable in all situations. You need to wear proper personal protection equipment, PPE, at all times when using tools of any kind, and you need to seek the assistance of a qualified professional if you do not have the skills, knowledge, and experience necessary to successfully assess non-structural earthquake hazard risks or to properly complete product installation. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions, which I hope there are lots of.
And Steve, if I could just add a comment on something you mentioned just now, just to clarify. If you aren't familiar with the ECA Mini Awards program, you can learn more at earthquakecountry.org/mini awards. The applications for the 2022 program are coming soon, where you'll be able to apply. And we encourage all of you to apply for funding that would actually buy you. We wouldn't give you money. We would buy you the products, similar to how we did with Stephen and his group and his projects over the years, and also with our next presenters projects, which were more of an education activity, as you'll hear. The funding does come from the FEMA National Earthquake Hazard Reduction Program, and then we buy those materials at sizable or great discount, basically at cost, from these partners, as mentioned, Ready America and Safety Proof, who are really great partners in making sure that we can get as much information out to as many people, and that also provide earthquake simulators that go around the state, you may have seen. So we'll talk a little bit more at the very end about the mini award program, but hopefully everyone here might consider doing this type of action that Stephen, that you just so expertly described, and how you've implemented the program, and I really appreciate all the detail. Sharon, are there any questions?
I do have one question from Carmen. Can earthquake insurance be justified as mitigation for those who question cost?
And Carmen, I wanted, if you could, we'll start answering this, but the last part for those who question cost, if you could clarify that, that could mean a couple different ways. My first step way of answering that is it really isn't mitigation. Mitigation generally is what you're going to do before to reduce or prevent damage from happening. Of course, insurance would help you replace items or build back. But if you mitigate more, you may have less need of that rebuilding or replacement later. So they're both ways that you can reduce and mitigate your financial hardship. But in terms of the items themselves, the type of work that Stephen was describing was really what you would do. You could, of course, have insurance on objects, collectibles, and that is available, for example, from the California Earthquake Authority. But it would be because you've lost them, and they'd have to get new ones with that funding. Does anybody else want to add anything to that answer to that question?
Yeah, Mark, real quick. So in terms of the cost, remember that there's a return on investment for every dollar spent. You're avoiding $6 in future insurance claims or damage. So that's one thing. We've been encouraging people to go and talk to their insurance companies, whoever holds their homeowner's policy or their earthquake insurance policy, and start to in a conversation about what mitigation will you give me a break on my policy premiums. I think that's worth a conversation. So, consider doing that. Just like now many insurance companies are gotten into the mitigation game for fire. I think we're going to be moving more with earthquake too. So engage in the conversation.
We do have a question from Rob. Is there a certification we can get to present to insurance agencies?
I'm not sure what that means.
I would imagine it is similar to what you do if you retrofit your home. There are some discounts that you would then get on your insurance premiums. But I don't believe that there is a similar discount, something you would show that you've secured items. There may be some sort of, I guess you need to talk to your insurance company, because that's who would provide that form for you. But I'm not, if it's in order to get like a discount that you've done this work, I think that's a great idea, but I don't think it's currently available.
I will add that there is a real need throughout California to have contractors that are certified or specialize in these mitigation measures. That's probably the single biggest question we get with every educational program that we do, particularly with seniors. Who can I call that will come and do this for me? And there isn't a long list of people who do that. And it's one of the things I've spoken with Ranholm about, but that's something that maybe ECA can assist with in the future.
That's right. And while most of earthquake insurance is to insure your structure, there are elements, especially with the California Earthquake Authority, where you can, in addition and separately, have different coverage for items, for belongings. That's all. There's a element to it that is really designed for people with collections that are very valuable, where you can have a higher level of coverage for your items than you might have in a basic policy. Of course, you'd pay more for that coverage, but it's because you have the types of things that you'd want to be able to replace or protect. Okay. Any other questions, Sharon?
No, that's it. Thank you very much.
Forgot to go to this slide to show you that we do have a survey of today's workshop or webinar. So we'll put that link in the chat as well. And if you have any further questions, if your questions don't get answered, you can just email info at earthquakecountry.org. And again, the webinar is going to be at this webpage where you probably registered at earthquakecountry.org/community. Chrysanta, back to you. And thank you, Stephen, very much.
Yes, thank you, Stephen. That was very informative. So now we're going to go ahead and change the slide deck, and I would like to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Candy Alvarez, and she will be speaking about Health Center Partners Emergency Preparedness and Response Program. Very excited to welcome Candy. Candy, we'll take it over to you now.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
So my name is Candy Alvarez. I'm the Emergency Preparedness Coordinator for Health Center Partners, and we were the recipient of the Mini Award to get these 1,000 activity books, and we named this project Prepare with Rocket. And the goal was to improve earthquake awareness and preparedness among children ages 3 to 9 at our member health centers. But first, let me tell you a little bit about our organization. Next slide. So we are a consortium of 17 primary care health organizations throughout the counties of San Diego, Riverside, and Imperial. We advocate for our members who serve the healthcare needs of their communities. So along with our subsidiary health quality partners, we support these community health centers through shared learning and run with my peer an emergency preparedness and response program that was established back in 2002. So the goal of our peer network is to bring staff members together from all our member organizations, and we get together for emergency and disaster preparedness topics, including training, best practices, policy and procedure, business continuity, regulatory compliance, and we actively participate in county operations during the emergencies. Next slide. Okay, so in February 2021, when we were first notified, we created this flyer to introduce what the project was to our members and to see who was willing to participate. We received about a total of 27 sites, family medicine and pediatric sites that were interested. These books actually have a value of $6.99. So this award was for $7,000. And this is the flyer, and you can see we put what the book was, how they can participate, and we wanted to incentivize the kids, so we showed what the giveaways were, and I'll go into more detail about that in a second. Next slide. Okay, so then in April, the Hero and You Foundation, who created these books, shipped us 1,000 books, and then we turned around and either shipped or hand delivered to the sites based on how many the site managers wanted. They come in English. However, if you go to their website, the Hero and You Foundation.org, I believe, they have many languages. But for us, the most requested for our communities were Spanish, Tagalog, Vietnamese, and Armenian. Once I deliver them, then the site managers, then they chose the way they wanted to distribute to their staff and to their patients. I know that many of them left them at the front lobby, and others just handed them out upon checkout. So in each book, I included instructions that also had a Zoom invite for the children to watch with their parents, to come online with me, and we would watch it in both English and Spanish. And these videos are only about 6 to 7 minutes, so they're very short. They keep the children's attention, and it was very effective. Afterwards, then we requested for our participants to submit activity book sheets and or pictures to show me how they watched it with their families. Okay, next slide. So this is another flyer. So this flyer actually went inside the book, and this is aimed for the parents. And as you can see on the front side, I put We hope this project will create conversations between children and their families that will get them more engaged and excited about earthquake preparedness. Now, I know many children, they learn about earthquake preparedness in their schools. However, as we run this emergency preparedness and response program, our goal is to create a culture of preparedness. So not just in the schools, but we went ahead and thought this would be a great idea to give to the children of our staff, the staff at the health centers and patients. Okay, next slide. Okay, so in these books, and I actually have a book here, as you can see, on page 12, there is a sheet that I asked for the children to complete, and it was pretty basic, but they all went through them. They filled it out. The parents scanned it back to me or just sent it by mail, and then they were able to get their certificate of achievement, which the children loved. And again, many of them did scan images of those to me. And here's just a picture of these two brothers. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so another way that they could win in the giveaway was to watch these videos. So they are on YouTube. And here's just a picture of a participant watching the video. I don't know if it was in English and Spanish, but it's super cute. So I put that in there. And then on the right, you'll see from my PowerPoint, when the children came on to watch the Zoom video with me, I just made it very simple. It was just 3 slides. The first slide was to welcome them and let them know that it was only going to be 6 minutes, but they were going to be very important tools. And then the middle slide is just what the video was. And then the third slide was congratulations, you've earned your spots. So earned your spots, that is a tagline that they use for rocket rules. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I also created this form so that parents could turn in information to me if they want, or if they wanted to, so that I could put them on our website and also put their name in the giveaway. We created, we put them in this online random room picker, and that's how we did it. And we just put everybody's name in there, and then whoever came up, that was it. And then we sent an email to the parents that they had won. Next slide, please. Okay, so this was the giveaway that I created. I would say it costs about probably $20 in our own funding to give away these 4 giveaways. So we purchased these red backpacks, and then I put some games. I found all of this from 99-cent store. We added a couple more things, and I had created this emergency contact card. So this other form, the kids emergency bag checklist. So this turned out to be pretty important. I got a lot of feedback from parents. They really liked this because it was so simple. Many of them I had spoken to thought that putting together these go bags were going to be, just too cumbersome, and they didn't know what to put in, and they were just confused. And there's so much information online. So by having this quick checklist, they really liked it. It was very simple, and so I'm glad I put that in there. Okay, next slide. Okay, so on our webpage, www.hcpsocal.org, I created just a page so that we could put the participants' names. And this was one thing that the children really loved, just to see their name on there. I did request permission beforehand to have their names and images posted online. Okay, next slide. Okay, so the feedback and the results. So this definitely benefited many children. everyone who participated seemed to really love the activity books, and they found these short videos to be effective. It kept the children's attention. And now, if you have a small child, I have a 5-year-old, keeping their attention is kind of hard when it comes to something like this. But a 6-minute video, they were able to watch it. They remembered the simple things. So it definitely was, for me, it was a success when they watched these videos. They really enjoyed it. Also, the kids were motivated because they saw their name on the internet, and they wanted to win what was in the giveaway. Once they saw that little puppy, they really wanted that. So that was good. And then finally, so the parents, I did hear that they didn't realize just how unprepared they really were. They didn't know that something so simple as this checklist was going to make them feel just a little more prepared. So that definitely brought more awareness. I know that many of the families, the parents had the grandparents work with the children to color, and that's why many of the other languages were requested, was so that the grandparents could also participate. So overall, we had 102 responses and our participants who turned in everything. And there was a couple of factors that did contribute to the low response rate at the beginning of the year. So in March, there were thousands of patients and staff members across San Diego County that were victims of ransomware. So at that time, they were not very comfortable with giving out information, very understandable. Also, vaccinations were a top priority at that time for both staff and patients, especially in outside settings. And also the increase of telehealth. So that led to a sharp decline in in-person visits. Okay, next slide. Oh, and here are just some more pictures of children and different ways that they were able to participate. You could see that they could do it on their computer, on their parents' cell phone, and then sometimes they would send me pictures of their children practicing. So this is great. This was very effective. I feel that the funding definitely was a huge benefit to both our program and to our health centers. So thank you very much to ECA. Yeah, does anyone have any questions? Let's see.
Sharon, do we have any?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I was on mute and talking to myself. I have a question from Carl. What if members of your team do not have earthquake insurance?
So that's going back to the previous previous presenter, and what of sorts, really not connected. It was connected to that talk. So if this is a question about like if your coworkers or others, it depends on what team is, don't have insurance, there's a lot of information that is now available for making the decision about earthquake insurance. You can look at earthquakecountry.org/step 4, where earthquake insurance is talked about in the 7 steps. Just look for the for step 4. The California Earthquake Authority, of course, offers earthquake insurance with many homeowners insurance companies in the state. They also do provide renters insurance, and renters insurance can be an excellent deal. You're only covering your belongings, not the structure. That's up to the landlord, the building owner. And so if you are a renter, you might certainly look at that. Not only your belongings, but you may have coverage for when you're not able to live in your space while it's being repaired. So that can be very helpful. But encouraging people generally to do what they can to minimize their potential financial hardship, whether it's by getting all their materials organized in advance so that they can begin their claims process. They might be able to get some limited funding from government sources for emergency needs, usually only. It's not for rebuilding, not for replacing everything, but you may be able to get some support. If you have materials together, like your if you have insurance, your insurance paperwork, or just if you have a list of your like an inventory of what you own that you can then say, this is what I lost. All those things are good ideas, in addition to what you can do about having insurance. Any questions for Candy about her rocket rules presentation?
We have a question. Can we get a copy of the books for the children to be able to copy and disperse through the community?
And I answered that in the chat too, so that I added the link to where you can get the materials. And you can download all of them for free and print them yourself, especially the activity books can be, since they're mostly black and white, not many colors at least. You can do that. You can also buy pre-printed copies. I'll say that Candy's comment that the retail price of the booklet she was pointing to at $6.99 is you may be able to request copies from the organization, the Hero on You Foundation, for much less than that, maybe even for free. They give many copies to schools and other groups all the time. They're a nonprofit, or you may be able to buy at a different price. We certainly, like our other partners, did not. The award was basically 1,000 of those booklets for only $500, so about 50 cents each is the rate that we were able to get, because we worked on it while they were being printed. So you may be able to make an arrangement like that as well, but try downloading and see see how many you need.
There was a little bit further about the previous question about earthquake insurance. There was a comment with earthquake insurance. The question is, what loss can you recover from? And Carl replied, Carl is the original person asking the question. This is for homeowners in my neighborhood. Most do not have insurance.
Maybe referring to like your CERT team. I understand maybe that's what's meant by team now. It's interesting when you were talking about your neighborhood. It's of course it's important for your neighbors, for their own recovery and financial recovery and of their belongings in their homes, to be able to have that resource of insurance to begin their recovery. It also is in all of our interests that our communities are going to be able to rebuild and recover, and not maybe faster than otherwise would. After large earthquakes, you can have areas that take many years to have, where homes are remain in a damaged state, or the repairs take a very long time. So, I would encourage people to consider if they can afford earthquake insurance, or if and how they might do it if not getting earthquake insurance, whatever they can do to reduce the chance of having losses. Kind of like that can be done a little bit at a time for the objects inside. And you might be able to also, depending on your house, if you have an older home with a crawl space beneath it, that there is programs that are available, including right now, there's an application program open. We can put the link into the chat for that, called Earthquake Brace and Bolt. So if your home has a crawl space, you can get at least $3,000, and depending on other factors, maybe even the entire cost covered for having your home retrofitted. So it's generally for homes that are older, that have that crawl space underneath. It's called the Earthquake Brace and Bolt program, and I'll put the link in the chat for that. Oh, and it's already there, earthquakebracebolt.com. The application process is open right now. It's only for certain zip codes, many zip codes, but you have to make sure your home is located within a covered zip code. And again, you might get up to $3,000 or more, depending on your situation, dollars for that retrofit.
There's no further questions. Thank you.
We are coming up on the hour. Just go ahead and again mention the survey that was in the chat, and maybe Sharon, if you could share that one more time. Some of the key links mentioned today. Chrysanta, maybe you have any final comments, or I ask Stephen or Candy?
I wanted to thank Candy for her presentation. I am a big fan of Bunny and of Rocket Rules. We engage with them on a regular basis with the city. She's always been a very valuable partner when it comes to children in our community. And I also wanted to mention that she also has an entire curriculum. So if you're associated with the school, she can actually provide an entire curriculum for your teachers for something that can go ongoing for your students. So thank you, Candy, a great presentation. I'm glad you were able to utilize that. And that's it, Mark. I just want to thank everybody for participating and for being here. And I hope that you got as much information from our guest speakers as I did. So back to you, Mark.
No, that's it. Thank you all. This is our 4th community engagement webinar. There will be more in the series, so be on the lookout. If you are not a member of ECA, join us at earthquakecountry.org/join, and you'll be on the email list, so you'll get notifications. With that, please have a good rest of your day.